I served in Vietnam in 1967 to 1968, and I was with the task force at Nui Dat. I was there at the time of the Tet Offensive, which was a pivotal moment in the war. I suggest perhaps when the expectations about the war changed. Life-changing from an innocent, carefree 18, 19 and then 20-year-old, then suddenly placed in an environment that was extremely violent, and to have all of this power and authority as a first world man with a gun and money in a third world country, it was almost overwhelming, that notion of how do you manage this? You know, it was something I was not comfortable with, and it's never left me, that sense of the disproportionate power between first world countries and their wealth and their people engaging in wars as against third world countries where, as in the case of Vietnam, it was a predominantly grassroots Viet Cong, North Vietnam effort with limited funds in the south, very limited. Yes, I went back in 1999 and travelled from Hanoi to Saigon over a 2-week period, and that was an amazing experience. How it was most reassuring to see that this country had largely recovered, and even then it looked like a third world country on a fast train into the first world. And when I went back in 2006, that was confirmed. You know, villages that were very much grass hut village stuff, all of a sudden there's asphalt and there's aluminium windows in shops, and you think, wow, this place is sort of really coming to life. And left me with great respect for the Vietnamese people. Great respect. It was understandable in a democracy, I think, as something that starts out initially in good faith, and it becomes apparent that it's not what it seemed to be at the outset, and people changed their mind. I think it was a tragedy that the service people themselves were discriminated against, because as the gentleman from the Air Force said, he was a professional man, that was his job, and in my case, being a conscripted person, was something I had no choice about, you know, and it just did happen to suit my philosophy at the time, a strong anti-communist view that I held as a person, but it's left me a different person. You know, I'm much more, I think more laterally now. I try not to sound like a rigid, narrow-minded, bigoted person, which many of us are by nature. I think human beings basically have prejudice in them, and you have to work really hard to be open. And I loved a story I saw of first Vietnamese refugees came into Darwin on a little boat, and they pulled into the wharf at Darwin. This man, I think he went on to be the mayor of Darwin, and they tied up their boat and they said to a fellow on the wharf, "Have you got a cigarette?" And the guy on the wharf threw him a packet of cigarettes. And this little man said, "We knew then we'd come to the right country." And I thought, in a way, that summed us up. I think as a country, I do believe we are good people. We are generous in nature. We have a fantastic but fragile system of democracy. And at times, when you try and defend that, it can appear that you're over the top, because it's a subtle thing. How do you defend an ideology? Because there are so many grey areas in between people's belief systems. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, being a mental health professional, I'm very mindful of the fact that everybody who is exposed to life-threatening situations will be traumatised by it, and there will be degrees of the post-traumatic stress disorder which range from minor distractive symptoms to major disabling symptoms. And I think I see myself as in that area of being a bit distracted, a bit annoyed by it, and a bit troubled by it at times. You know, I have an inner restlessness that's always there. It's very difficult. I can sit and read, and that sort of placates that restlessness. Now I'm retired.